Welcome top news today.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell RKY speaks to reporters about the spending bill and immigration following the party's weekly policy luncheon. WongGetty Images Bitter divisions in both parties threatened Wednesday to derail Congress's effort to keep the federal government fully operating past the end of the week. The shutdown threat emerged on two fronts. Republican defense hawks in the House said a short-term spending plan the party introduced late Tuesday did not devote enough money to the military. Meanwhile, Democrats, whose support would be critical for passage in the Senate, began lining up in opposition amid pressure from immigration activists to use the budget talks as leverage to legalize many young immigrants known as Dreamers. By Wednesday evening, the short-term bill was on the cusp of failure. The Capitol Hill showdown reflected a broader clash certain to dominate national politics in the months leading up to November's midterm elections. President Trump and congressional Republicans are determined to fulfill the campaign promises that swept them to power in 2016, including boosting military spending and scaling back immigration. Democrats have been emboldened by Trump's unpopularity and a surge of grassroots activism to resist at every turn. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell RKY, flanked by other GOP senators, talks to reporters at the Capitol. Jonathan Ernst is absent and accord. Federal agencies would cease non-essential activities and furlough hundreds of thousands of employees at midnight Friday evening, the first shutdown since 2013, when GOP opposition to the Affordable Care Act sparked a 16-day standoff. House Republicans unveiled a bill Tuesday that would extend funding for 4 weeks, allowing time for further negotiations toward deals on long-term spending and immigration. To entice Democrats, GOP leaders attached a 6-year extension of the popular children's health insurance program, as well as the delay of two unpopular health care taxes. But few, if any, Democrats have been swayed by the overture. House Democratic leaders urged their caucus to withhold their votes, forcing Republicans to produce their own majority. And most Senate Democrats, whose votes are necessary to pass, bristled at the strategy. "I think there's a lot of reluctance to take what Republicans throw at us without any negotiation," said Sen. Chris Murphy-Deacon, who remained undecided on the bill. "I mean, what's amazing to us is we're 48 hours from a shutdown, and Republicans aren't willing to engage in a good-faith negotiation with Democrats." At the same time, Democrats were far from unified. While some promised to oppose the funding measure, others were reluctant to shut down the government. "I don't think there's consensus," Murphy said. Republicans, meanwhile, laid the groundwork to blame a shutdown on Democrats. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell RKY noted Democrats have called for a renewal of the children's health program and said, "We have a good chance of passing it." House Speaker Paul D. Ryan RWIs said it was baffling and unconscionable that Democrats would vote against the bill. Good faith negotiations are underway, and to push that aside and try and jeopardize funding for things like children's health insurance and our military, to me, makes no sense. Ryan said, "Democrats have sought to bargain over a litany of policy matters, including funding to counter opioid abuse and protections for failing pension plans." The most explosive issue, however, remained the fate of the roughly 690,000 young immigrants who enrolled in the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program under President Barack Obama's administration to avoid deportation, as well as other Dreamers who were brought to the United States as children. Trump has announced plans to end the DACA program in March, forcing high-stakes negotiations over a legislative fix. Democrats have insisted that those talks be combined with a debate over a long-term spending accord, which has placed immigration policy at the center of the shutdown drama. As House Republican leaders work to avoid a shutdown, White House Chief of Staff John F. After exiting a bipartisan meeting of top congressional leaders, Kelly gave an upbeat assessment of the immigration talks while offering no timetable for when an agreement might be reached. "The DACA deal will be worked out, I think, by the United States Congress," he told reporters. Both sides of the aisle have agreed to meet in a smaller group and come up with what they think is the best DACA deal, and then it'll of course be presented to the president. Senate Minority Leader Charles E. Schumer DNY told reporters Wednesday that an overwhelming number of Senate Democrats were opposed to another short-term funding bill without an accord on immigration. They believe if we kick the can down the road this time, we'll be back where we started from next time, so there's very, very strong support not to go along with their deal, he said. Several Democratic senators who voted for a similar bill in December, giving Republicans enough votes to avert a pre-Christmas shutdown, announced on Wednesday that they would not support another patch. Senator Martin Heinrich DNM said he was not willing to leave these bipartisan priorities behind and vote for a bill that gives President Trump and congressional Republicans more time to hold the country hostage. At least one Senate Republican, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, further complicated the GOP outlook, saying he, too, would oppose the bill. Sen. John McCain's Arizona absence because of cancer treatment left only 49 potential Republican votes for the bill, and 2 of those, Mike Lee Utah and Rand Paul voted against previous similar measures. "I'm tired of it," said Graham, who crafted a bipartisan DACA proposal that Trump rejected last week. "This is the 4th one we've done, and you're killing the military." Passage in the Senate requires 60 votes, but defections among Democrats had pushed the GOP to the edge. House GOP leaders hoped to hold a vote on the spending bill Thursday but faced a potential revolt from Republican members of the House Armed Services Committee, who have bristled at the delay in an agreement boosting military funding, and conservative hardliners, who want to take a tough line with Democrats on immigration and other issues. "The only way they're going to be taking the deal that we're offering is if they're forced to, and no one has the courage to force them to," said Rep. Scott Perry RPA, a member of the House Freedom Caucus. The chances that a shutdown would come to pass increasingly rested on a small group of moderate Senate Democrats, who were being forced to choose between the party's efforts to secure immigration and funding priorities and the desires to keep agencies open while talks continue. They are under intense pressure from liberal activists and advocates for immigrants, who are pushing Democrats to stand up to Trump and Republicans, particularly on behalf of Dreamers, who could be at risk for deportation under Trump's policies. Angel Padilla, policy director for Indivisible, a network of liberal citizen groups, said the organization's 6,000 chapters nationwide are focused this week on pressuring Democrats to vote against the next spending plan. "This is a much bigger issue after what happened last week," Padilla said, referring to reports that Trump called the African nations, El Salvador and Haiti, shithole countries. "We don't understand why a Democrat would go along, given what happened last week," he added. "Sometimes it's a hard vote, but sometimes you have to do this." The clash has posed an intense quandary for Schumer, whose instinct has long been to protect the more moderate members of his caucus from political peril in an election year.